Hanson-Young.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I rise tonight to add my contribution to this extraordinary debate that we're having today in this place and the other into what is an unprecedented package to pass the parliament, to be put forward by the government of the day, and to deal with what is clearly unprecedented times. We are in the midst of a health crisis. We're in the midst of an economic crisis, and we are in the midst of a community and social crisis. And I fear, as we go through this process, as we do everything we can to flatten that curve, to save lives and to deal with the economic ramifications, that the community and social crisis is the one that is going to be with us the longest. It is that many of us, of course, in this place already today, have referenced as to how we help those who are most vulnerable, those who have lost their jobs literally overnight, and the people on the front lines working to keep all of us safe and healthy. These are indeed unprecedented times, followed by extraordinary scenes we're seeing unfold across the world. All you need to do is look at the images and reports coming out of Italy right now to know that that is not what we would wish on any community, on any group of people, on any country, on any people. Here around Australia, we know the extraordinary scenes are unfolding. Businesses closed and collapsed overnight, schools closing in some areas and more to close as days and weeks go on. And of course the extraordinary, heartbreaking scenes that we have seen today of lineups of thousands of people, Australians who have lost their jobs, whether it was overnight or throughout the last week or two, lining up around the block of Centrelink offices right around the country. And I must say, the footage of people lined up, desperate to get in to speak to Centrelink about what help they could get, how they could help pay their rent, put food on the table and support their families, is just absolutely heartbreaking. And to see the footage in Bondi, where police were called to tell people lined up outside the local Centrelink office to go away and come back tomorrow with maybe a hope that they'd get in the door. As one woman reported outside that office, she had $10 to her name today, and the police told her to turn around and go home. These types of scenes, sadly, I fear, are going to be seen more and more and more as we deal with this unfolding crisis. And that, of course, is why the government has put forward this extraordinary piece of legislation, or package of legislation. It is an huge amount of money to be putting on the table. But even then, Madam Acting Deputy President, you look around at what's going on, you listen to the experts, and even then we know more is going to be needed. And of course people are anxious, and they're scared, and they're fearful, and they're really confused. It's been really difficult for people to understand what is going to happen, what is expected of them, how can they help prepare themselves and their families, how do they answer those questions that their kids have about what is going on. And of course those terrible questions. And children are very good at asking the questions that people, as adults, we dare not utter. How many people are going to die? What's going to happen to Grandma and Grandpa? When do I get to go back to school? Why can't I have a birthday party with my friends? I think the questions that children ask us in times of crisis like this are the most illuminating. And as leaders from right across the community and the country here gathered in this place, we have to steel ourselves to be prepared to be honest and truthful about what these consequences mean. You know, thousands of people will die. Some medical experts here in Australia are saying it could be up to 150,000 people may die from this. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their jobs. The Treasurer himself today said that 1 million people are expected to become unemployed because of the coronavirus. Hundreds of thousands of people are already losing their jobs. What happens when we get sick? I have to be honest about this to the Australian people, that our hospitals are at this point going to become overcrowded, overloaded. It's up to us to be honest about that and say what it is that we're going to do to fix it, which is why the Greens today are calling for doubling those critical care beds in hospitals, because we know they're going to be needed. Politics has taken quite a battering over the last few years. Trust has been eroded. Trust in public institutions is as low as it's ever been. And at a time like this, it's really difficult to ask people, to expect people to all of a sudden trust that we've got this in hand, that the government has a plan and can deliver it. We have to make sure we work bloody hard to rebuild that trust. And that means being honest, that means being clear, that means being able to give advice that is understandable, without contradiction. Yes, we need to listen to those medical experts who are telling us we need to go hard and we need to go now. And I want to thank all of those health professionals and medicos who are right now on the front line and will be expected and needed to be on the front line for weeks and months to come. As a community and as a society, we are going to be indebted to you forevermore. The teachers who are dealing with the questions and anxiety and confusion of students across the country today, the childcare workers and the aged care workers who know that their skills are critical at this moment, many of whom aren't paid enough, many of them who are not on good wages, many of whom are employed casually, and if they get sick themselves, are unsure how they're going to be able to pay the rent or the mortgage. For them, we must step up and make sure no one is left behind. Businesses right across the country are closing their doors, standing down staff. From the biggest companies of Qantas, even the AFL today, standing down 80% of their staff, and the remaining 20% are going to take a pay cut, to the smallest businesses that are the heartbeat of our nation's economy. And it's those people who, within an instant of the announcements being rolled out by the government over the last 2 weeks, lost business, had to stand down staff and had to close their doors. For those people, this is a terrifying time. Many of those businesses will never recover. Whole families have invested in these operations. Their staff are like family to them. The casual workers and the gig economy workers who have no idea what they're going to do now. And thankfully there is some support in this package to make sure people have access to New Start and the coronavirus supplement. But once you fall out of that particular work field, it's very hard, often in sectors, to get back in. And while we talk about hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people being unemployed for the next 6 months, that time and that uncertainty and that lack of employment is going to stretch for many, many of them for months and years to come. We know that the industries that have been hit the hardest thus far, tourism. After all of the efforts and the heartache that the tourism industry and those small family operators in towns right across the country who battled the bushfires, they today are having a double whammy. Australia's tourism industry and all of the businesses and small communities that rely on them have been decimated all over again. They need their own support package. I'm sad to say that in what we've been given by the government thus far is not enough for our tourism industries. Hospitality, arts, entertainment. These industries 2 weeks ago had the rug pulled out from underneath them, and instantly they lost hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. 500,000 people in the arts and entertainment industry have already lost their job over the last 2 weeks. Billions of dollars is going to be wiped out of our economy because we haven't been able to cushion the blow to our arts, creative and entertainment industries enough. And of course, in the midst of the bushfires, who was it that stepped up to give us hope, to raise money, to support their local community without asking for anything in return? It was our artists, our creatives, our entertainers. And when we finally get through this, who is going to be there to help us rebuild and heal? Our arts community is essential to helping us as a community rebuild, regather and redefine ourselves after these challenges. Our arts and entertainment sector desperately need much more support than what's been put on the table. And I implore the government, you have $20-odd billion left in your kitty over the next couple of months as a result of the supply measures. Please use it. The arts and entertainment industry need their own package to survive. The world is changing fast and it's changing very, very quickly. We need to make sure we guarantee wages and we guarantee jobs, which is why I'm foreshadowing a second reading amendment that does this. Passing this amount of money and not ensuring that people get to keep their jobs is crazy. In the UK, Boris Johnson, of all people, gets this. I implore the government to think very carefully about these amendments and to consider what can be done to guarantee people's jobs are kept when businesses are handed public money. And I finally just want to say that in the midst of all of this and the desire for truth, clarity and information, our public broadcasters are essential. The ABC has been doing a brilliant job of trying to keep the Australian people informed. Facts, informed analysis, trying to deal with those tricky questions that no one seems to be able to have an answer to. Thank heavens for Dr. Swan for being able to answer those questions that the government can't. I implore the minister today, reverse the cuts to the ABC and lift the indexation freeze so every Australian knows what's actually going on.